Hey guys, I want to welcome you back to another episode of Pistons Talk Podcast. Hope you guys enjoyed that sweet belt to ass against the Milwaukee Bucks. Got our lick back. I am joined by Sean Murphy, credential Pistons reporter and the host of From Half Court. Definitely should be subscribed to From Half Court and follow us on if you're not already. Sean, welcome to the show, man. How you doing?
What's going on, Anthony? You know, the Pistons won again.
Yeah, they did.
Crazy. Yeah, no, it's what a time, man. It's great. They said it on the broadcast, but they didn't they got their 19th win tonight, which they didn't even reach that mark over, the past couple of years before last. So definitely a lot different of a time covering Pistons basketball than it was before. You and I were just talking right before this, like this could be the first time in a while we're doing some real game, like some live game coverage into May and possibly June. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean you're first place in the East, and for people that are watching right now, usually these are post game podcasts, but we are not doing a post game podcast. Anytime I have Sean on, it's a long form podcast. It's a fun podcast, so we got a lot of topics that we are going to get into tonight. So for people that are coming on in, if you want to follow Sean and his work, I have everything linked in the description. His Twitter, if you want to catch him shitting on Hornets fans or just pissing off any other NBA fan base. I mean, Sean's a good follow. Have From Half Court YouTube channel. Definitely should be subscribed to that if you haven't already. Again, it's in the description of the YouTube channel. And if you want to follow me, if you're not already, go for it. If not, doesn't hurt my feelings. But we're going to get into today's show. I wanted to start with the Isaiah Thomas stuff. He was on the broadcast yesterday for George Blaha's bobblehead night, 50 years of broadcasting. Shout out to George. And he had said something that I think Pistons fans maybe took the wrong way. He'd said that, he's wondering if Cade does have a mentor. Like, what did you kind of like think he meant by that? Because I feel like a lot of Pistons fans took it as an insult rather than just like a genuine question by Isaiah Thomas.
Yeah, I think it's one of those comments on the surface when you initially hear, you're like, well, when a lot of times when you hear a young player needs a mentor, that's when you have questions about their maturity. And that's when you have questions about their leadership. And you think a lot about whenever you hear about like a guy needing a mentor, you think about someone, teaching a player how to be a pro, which when you look at Cade Cunningham, he's been a pro since he's come into the building. So that's not what Isaiah Thomas is talking about. What I think he's talking about, and I think the way that you probably took it as well, is I think he's talking about having that, that star veteran or that person with deep playoff experience who has been there before, who has been the number one or number two option on a championship caliber team or a team who has expectations of competing for a championship, and having someone who can tell Cade exactly what it takes to get through those moments to get deeper into the playoffs. Like, I think he's talking about like how, in Houston right now, like, for example, like, I don't think anyone would say Alperen Sengun has a maturity problem, but what he does have is a Kevin Durant who can help him with elevating his game even further and taking another step. I think you look at like Tyrese Halliburton, he didn't have a maturity problem, but you brought in a Pascal Siakam to the Pacers who was a champion who could take that team to another level. I think, kind of like what Isaiah is really talking about is going and getting that guy alongside Cade, like kind of that star level player who's been there and who's done that. And you can tell Cade exactly where he needs to take his game next to get him to the level that we know he can get to. So I think to your point, it's like a lot of times whenever you hear people, especially like former like players of the team, like speak like critically about players on this team, I think we all immediately go back to the Dave Bing comment where he said that I don't think Cade's like a franchise level player, which has clearly just been proven to be categorically false. Cade's a top 5 player in the league this season, top 10 at the very least. But when you look at, just like what's it going to take for Cade to bring the Pistons to that championship level? Like, we even saw Luka Doncic when he went to his first finals a couple of years ago struggle through that. We see players all the time get into the playoffs and see, okay, this is clearly the element in his game that he's going to have to overcome in order to get to that championship level. So that's the way that I took it.
Yeah, I didn't take it as like disrespect because I thought he was coming from a good place. Isaiah mentioned like when he was playing, him and Magic Johnson were very close. He said I had Magic in my ear. He mentioned Dave Bing. Like Dave Bing used to go in the locker rooms after his games and give him words of encouragement and words of advice. I will say I know Cade, Cannon, his brother, Ashton, his trainer, like they're in his circle. They're in his ear. They spend a lot of time with him. I think what Isaiah was just kind of saying is just like I wonder if Cade does have that mentor. And I was thinking about this today. Like, I think Kevin Durant could be a mentor. I mean, for the
Yep.
amount of time that we've seen, Cade Cunningham and Kevin Durant, we just saw him on a boardroom podcast last month. Even before Cade got drafted, there was an interview of just Katie checking on him, see how he's doing. Like, I think Cade does have mentors. It's just not out in public. It's just not out in the open. And we've seen former NBA legends like, Carmelo Anthony saying, I want to work out with
I was
Cade.
just about to bring that up.
Yeah, Rajon Rondo saying, I'd love to work with Cade. I think if Cade wants to, invite those guys and kind of pick their brain, I'm sure he will. He's just a basketball junkie. I didn't really have any problems with what Isaiah Thomas said. I think some fans get very protective of him, and that's your franchise guy. I get it. But I mean, you have to realize like that's a two-time champion. He is, in my opinion, the greatest Detroit Piston in the franchise history. I mean, he's a guy that, put them on the map. The Bad Boys were some of the toughest, grittiest basketball teams in NBA history. So I really didn't have a problem with it whatsoever. I know some fans were just kind of upset with it, but if you kind of just break it down, it wasn't really an insult whatsoever.
Yeah, I think we're conditioned to older players, or as they're referred to on NBA Twitter, the old heads.
Hmm.
I think we're used to them coming in and being negative instinctively and talking down on the game almost from a point of self-preservation. But like you said, like I think I don't even think it is a debate. Like he is the greatest Piston of all time, especially if you're just going off a resume and accomplishments. He's the guy who helped bring 2 of the 3 championships to Detroit. And he's someone who, no matter what, is about the Pistons succeeding. And I think when you look at like an Isaiah Thomas, like he's someone who he's going to give you exactly what he thinks, and he's not going to sugarcoat it. And like with a Cade Cunningham, like you said, I think Kevin Durant already is a mentor when you look at the way that when you just listen to that boardroom podcast, it's clear that there's already a pre-existing relationship there. Kevin Durant's known Cade since he was in high school. I also know, just beyond wanting to work out, Cade mentioned at media day that him and Melo did have some conversations this summer, and he didn't want to delve into those very much because I think Cade's one of those guys where, like some guys like Wemby, for example, like he pretty much marketed everything he did this last
Yeah.
summer, right? Like he worked with Mutombo. Like there's guys where it's like you gotta have a photo from every single workout you do with someone so that you can make sure it's known. But like I think Cade, at least the way that I see him approach some of those things, is I think part of him like recognizes like the fan and him is still there. And it's like, I think for example, like I think if him and Dirk Nowitzki were to have a workout or were to have conversations, I don't think he would necessarily be going out and talking about it because like that's his favorite player ever. And that means that means a lot to him, like, so I think he's one of those guys where he's never had to flash everything he's done in front of people's faces. But all that to be said, like we kind of talk about like the way that like could the Pistons make a move, or like what do they need roster wise? Like I think it's just an interesting like additional perspective and element to discuss of, like what could that role model type player be, or that person be for Cade Cunningham?
Yeah. I mean, if I remember correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, he mentioned that he was working with somebody in a press conference, but he wouldn't say who it was. So I mean, it could be a mentor. I mean, like we touched on Kevin Durant. He could have been working with KD. I mean, Cade to me, I think is a pretty private person.
Yeah.
Um, ever since the infamous Instagram live, I think he learned his lesson about being very transparent and open with fans. The draft night kid, if you know what I'm talking about. But I mean, I think he has a lot of people in his ear. I think he is getting good advice. Again, I don't really think Isaiah Thomas meant any ill will towards it
Right.
whatsoever.
Right. Like if there's anyone that you do not have to worry about their maturity or not having people in his corner that are telling him what he needs to hear and not what he wants to hear, like I think what like one of the things that makes Cade Cunningham like his ceiling so high is when you look at like his camp and the people in his corner, like I'd put that up against anybody as far as the superstars in the league, as far as like they push him to be the best version he can be. And they will tell him if he's not being that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really think we have any issues there, but I did want to touch on it. I know some Pistons fans, especially yesterday and last night, they were kind of upset with how it kind of came off. But knowing Isaiah Thomas, it just came out of just a genuine question and respect.
Yep.
I did want to kind of ask you just the games this week. What was kind of like your overall thoughts? They go 3-1, only lost one game to the Milwaukee Bucks, and they get their win back against the Bucks tonight. But like, what did you think of the games this week so far?
Yeah, I think a couple things that just stood out is I think you saw the impact of a Duncan Robinson on this team the second he's on the floor versus when he's not. Just the level of shooting that he's brought, but just on top of that, like just the stable veteran presence that he's been. Like I tweeted it like a couple weeks ago, but it's like Duncan Robinson's like genuinely been like a phenomenal signing for this team. And he's like, I think he's like, I'd put this season up against like any of his career thus far, as far as like his quality of basketball. And if anything, I'd say this would be the best basketball of his career because this is probably the most he's been relied on as a veteran throughout his career. Definitely, definitely really solid there. I brought it up in the press conference yesterday, and the way I said it to JB, like he had a little bit of a chuckle, but like legitimately, like the only way I could think of saying it is the constants for this team are death, taxes, and Ron Holland makes winning plays. Like come hell or high water, he comes into a game and turns the tide in the Pistons' fortune just about every single time. Like if you look at if you look at, whether in against Portland, like when he was, like making plays on the offensive end and hitting multiple shots, or you look at some of the different games where like he has all these different steals and blocks, like he's just such a disruptive presence on the defensive end. And then, the other piece, JB Bickerstaff said it himself the other night of Isaiah Stewart's the best defensive center in the world. And I think we're there. Like it's like that conversation, it's time for that to be had. So like, I think like, I don't think based off of how things have gone over the last like week or so, I think this team I think we can officially like kind of like put any like reservations of like, okay, but like, is this really who the Pistons are? Like, this is who they are. We're 24, 25 games into the season. They're going to be one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference. The question is, with some of the flaws that they have and with some of the, things that we're seeing now that guys are coming back into the rotation, what, if anything, changes come deadline time? And what, if anything, holds them back from playing into June?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people, and I don't know if you experienced this, but just on my timeline, during the winning streak, I think Pistons fans were really excited that they had a team that they could, go out and support. I think the vibes in the city were really high. Like, could they break that all-time franchise winning streak? Obviously, they came a little bit short, but they were able to, tie with some previous championship teams.
Yep.
I think the expectations went a little bit out of control because when they did lose a game against the Celtics, you started seeing the negative comments. And I don't know if it's just, Pistons fans that started tuning in during the winning streak, or maybe it was just like maybe a fan that hasn't watched the Pistons, since the last time they were pretty good during the going to work era. But I felt like the expectations from a fan perspective have gone like really, really high. Like I remember me and you having conversations. Like I asked you, I was like, is this a 50-win basketball club? And you're like, yeah. I said, I think so too. I think they could easily win 50 games. But just from my point of view, I think expectations is from the fans. Is like, I haven't seen expectations like this probably since the last time they had a championship squad.
Like based off of what I'm seeing, based off of the way fans are talking about this team, it feels like fans at the minimum are expecting a conference finals appearance. Like it feels like people are expecting this to be one of, if not the last team standing in the East, which like the fact that we're saying that with a straight face is just like that's just again, it's just a reality that we have to adjust to. I mean, for me and for you, like, I don't think it's like entirely new territory. If anything, it just feels like what the Pistons should be or what the Pistons have been in the 2000s and in years past. But for a lot of Pistons fans, it's almost like they're it's very similar. Like a lot of them are Lions fans too, where it's like they have never tasted this level of success before. And I think especially just with where the East is, with the injuries, with how open things truly are, it almost feels like there's an urgency to get it done now because of the opportunity at hand. But what I would tell people who are having those types of concerns is I think the openness in this Eastern Conference like allows this team to not have to go out and spend any major assets and see what they can really do now before, guys do start coming back. Because I think once you do have a Tatum and a Tyrese Halliburton back, like, I don't think the Pistons are going anywhere. I think those guys are going to have to contend with the Pistons the same way the Pistons are going to have to contend with them.
I know. I was just kind of like reflecting on my like kind of goals for this team this year, and I was like, make the playoffs one, but win a playoff series. Like if you win a playoff series, to me, like you're competitive. You win, let's just say, 52 games this year, whatever it is, or 48, whatever. And you win a playoff series, like that's a whole nother monkey off your back. Like you haven't won a playoff series since 2008 against the Boston Celtics when Ray Allen and Rajon Rondo and Kevin Garnett were on that squad. So,
yeah,
I mean, like, I think where they're trending is they're going to have home court in the playoffs. They have a chance to win a playoff series. Like, I'm never going to tell a fan how to fan,
right?
But it's really interesting to see how their perspective switches up with expectations. And I love it, man. Like I've been loving doing these post-game podcasts at night. I've been loving interacting with Pistons fans that, hey, like we had someone in the chat today talking about how they're from Albania. They've been a fan since 2001, and it's 4:30 in the morning, and they stayed up to watch the Detroit Pistons.
Wow.
Like it's really cool to see just like how many fans that the Detroit Pistons have worldwide.
Yeah. And again, like you said, it's like, it's awesome to see that people have these hopes and these expectations now, and it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, I haven't been here before. I don't really know how to carry myself. It's like, how do you act? What do you say? What do you do? But like, what got you here was the patience and the things that the Pistons have been doing up to this point, right? As far as like the last couple of years specifically. So I think what I would urge like to those people is if it ain't broke, like we don't need to fix it right away. So I think especially with the Boston loss, for one, it was breaking the losing streak, but also I think it was really easy for a lot of like the casual observers because there was one major change that week, and it was Jaden Ivey returning to the lineup.
Yeah.
So for people, it's like, oh, he returns to the lineup and we lose that week. He's instantly the problem. It's like, well, nope, this is not a 2+2 situation here.
Man, I don't know how many people I saw on Hate Watch, especially after one, and not even Pistons fans, it's NBA fans when they lost, when the winning streak was over, because the Pistons were getting a lot of national attention that they haven't gotten in 20 years. But two, I know there are a section of the Detroit Pistons fan base that don't care for Jaden Ivey, and that's fine. Like we all have our favorite players. I have my favorite players. And I root for them regardless of how they do. But yeah, just the hate watch that I've seen on the timeline is honestly wild.
It's so interesting how you can get to such a deep level of fandom for a team that it becomes sub fandoms where, like you said, it's like there's different factions within this tribe. Like you have your Ivy truthers, you have your Thompson twin, like true believers, like you have your you have your Cunningham's FCs, you have your Duren diehards. It's a rather fascinating thing to maneuver. Now I know how Twilight fans felt when they had to go up with Edward and Jacob,
I remember that in high school. So many girls were just like, "I'm Team Edward. Which are you?" I was like, "Who?"
Yeah.
I had no idea like what that was. I can't believe we did a Twilight reference on a Pistons podcast, but that's why I
Dude,
bring it
like
up.
let alone a Twilight reference in 2025. Like if you're talking about the hip stuff, you get it right here.
That's why I bring you on, man. It's always a good time and good laughs. Like I never know what you're gonna say, and it's just honestly hilarious.
Honestly, I never know what I'm gonna say. So we're along for the ride together.
Yeah, I mean that's why we do podcasts. They're fun like that. But there was some news this week as it pertains to Jalen Duren. You mentioned him a little while ago. And I know we both talked about contract extensions this summer.
Uh-huh.
I was under the impression that Duren would have got one, just because I felt like, he was healthy. I didn't really know what his camp was asking for. Now, Vinny Goodwell, who does work for ESPN, talked to some people, and the reporting that came out of that was he's hearing that, Jalen Duren could be seeking a 5-year deal worth $185 million. Now, not saying that he's not worth it, but my question to you is, do you think that the Detroit Pistons could actually offer him what he's really seeking?
So, first of all, if anyone's questioning this figure, what I'll say is Vinny Goodwill is as well tied in as anyone. So, if it's coming from Vinny, that's as good, that's as reliable of a Pistons source as you can get nowadays. Having said that, it definitely doesn't surprise me from the standpoint of you look at the ascension on the offensive end, and you look at kind of the fact that he's been, the talk of the town of the league. I would say, based off of what we've seen thus far, I would be shocked if he's not an all-star this year. I would be shocked if he's not going to be, at least heavily considered to be on on the 2028 Team USA team if he continues to keep playing like this. He's one of the most intriguing up and coming bigs in the league. And with that, I would say if there's anything I've kind of other observations just over the last week and just things that we've watched is Duren, I'm not going to say as come back down to earth, but it's there's definitely been there's been those super dominant games, and there's been the games where he struggled a little bit more. And specifically, I think if there's anything we're really, kind of starting to see trend to being a little bit more of a problem, it's the turnovers. Sometimes specifically on the offensive end, he is he's great at initiating his offense, and he's great at, creating his own opportunities. But there's also times where he just should not be doing it, and just doesn't make sense for him to be doing it, at least the way that he has been doing it. And if you look at some of the turnover numbers, he had a season high 6 against Portland last night. And that one in particular, there were just a lot of drives or takes that he was it's sometimes he just, once he gets the ball, there is no other thought than I am going to the rim. And when you're playing against teams, especially like Portland, where it's they have guys who have long and active hands, who can put pressure on the ball, who can make things really uncomfortable for you, you have to play a lot more selective than that. And I think if you look at some of the games where Detroit's played a bit closer than they should, I think you can kind of track Duren's struggles and turnover issues with it.
I feel like, and this is no knock at him, I think he's taken that next step in terms of putting the ball on the floor more. He's getting to the free throw line at a really high clip. I just kind of didn't expect him to take the leap that he's taking right now, and I think that's good.
Yep.
My only thing with I go back to what Trajan said on the Zach Lowe podcast when he was asked about, contract extensions. How close were they? He said that they had a lot of conversations, but, no deals were getting done. And he kind of touched on like being able to still build a competitive team while trying to keep as much core guys as possible.
Yep.
I'm not saying $37 million a year is going to break the bank for the Pistons, but if you add up Kate Cunningham's like $50 million contract and just reported like $37 million, those two would be accounting for 50% of your cap space.
Yeah,
Not saying it's
you have a Star Thompson up. You have a Star Thompson up to bat next summer.
Yeah, and then Ron Holland the year after that. I'm not saying that Duren's not going to get paid. I'm not saying that the Detroit Pistons don't value him. I think they value him a lot. I think Cade Cunningham loves playing with Jalen Duren. Like the chemistry those two have, I think is next level. I don't think he's going to get the full 185. Now the Pistons might say, hey, we're not really feeling the 185. How's 165? How's 170?
Yep.
You always ask for more than you actually want. There might be a number where like Duren might be asking for 185, and if they offered him like 170, like 172, he'd probably take it. Or maybe they kind of pulled the Jalen Green thing, which I know you had mentioned, saying like, why don't you just front load it for 3 years and he gets his 40 million and he's happy for 3 years and kind of revisit it. So I think there's a lot of avenues that the Pistons can take. But I was pretty intrigued once I saw this figure this week. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely it was an eye opener to say the least. Of like, okay, this is where the conversation's gone. Like I remember you and I right before the season started did a pod where we were having this exact same conversation, but the question wasn't is he worth 5 years 185? The question is, was he worth 5 years 150? Was he worth 30 a year?
Yeah.
And now, like, I remember at the time I compared, like, I brought up the stats, and the center that, that would have put him next to was Bam Adebayo. Well, now you're talking about the contract that Alperen Sengun got, which Alperen Sengun isn't just one of the most intriguing, like he's not just one of the best bigs in the league. He's like one of the most intriguing up and coming all-stars in the league. And so now you're framing the conversation like, at the time I remember it's like, okay, now you're framing that conversation in a different light. Now we're having it in an even higher one. So when we sound like we're nitpicking, or if we sound like we're criticizing, it's not because we're criticizing Jalen Duren, the player, as like who he is now. What we're doing is we're judging him from the context of let's say this is who he is right now at 5 years, $185 million. What are the biggest drawbacks from keeping you competitive? These things, right? Like, and especially like when you talk about, and this is before you talk about, okay, well, what is it even going to look like if the Pistons do decide to also talk about a Jaden Ivey extension? What does it look like with a Sar Thompson where, let's be honest, he's probably going to command 30 plus million a year. And I think you and I probably agree with his defensive prowess. Like, there's not many numbers where I wouldn't go, okay, that doesn't make sense. With just some of the things he can do. So like you said, it's just when you look at like the ways that teams like have to build throughout the league, it's like realistically speaking, you can really only pay 2 or 3 guys at max level. And so if you're putting Duren right there, you're essentially saying this is number 1, number 2, and this is going to be our championship core. Like you're locking that in.
Yeah, that's where I think the conversation gets interesting, because I was curious. Whoops, almost hit my mic over. I was curious to see like who are the top paid centers in the league, and obviously you have Jokic, Karl Anthony Towns, and Joel Embiid. They all make $50 million, and then it's kind of like the tier 1, right? And you have the tier 2 with Evan Mobley, and I believe. I don't think the Domantas Sabonis is at 40 million off the top of my head, but I think it's kind of like around the LP Sengun, Sabonis around there, like around the 38 to like $40 million range, which I think if he wants that, cool. you just got to prove it. Like you have to continue to develop your game. You have to continue, developing his post moves, which I think he's developed quite a bit. I'd like to see him continue to take mid-range jump shots. I know that it's a very small sample size in his mid-range game, but I've been, pretty pleased with, just his development in that aspect of his game. I think it's just really interesting to see what Trajan does, because I think a lot of people look at the Pistons right now from a national perspective, and we're going to get into trades in a little bit. I think a big reason why the Pistons might not make any moves is they have a lot of financial commitments they have to think about, not only for this summer, but next summer.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Jalen Duren's asking for 5 years, 185. You touched on Jaden Ivey. What could he be seeking? We don't know. Is Jaden Ivey seeking a $100 million contract? Could he be seeking more than that? So I think there's a lot of commitment that the Pistons obviously have to make decisions on. I'd like to keep Jalen Duren here. Obviously, the Pistons have his bird rights. There will be teams that do have cap space. I don't know too many teams that have cap space that are going to go into a bidding war with the Pistons personally. If this was the price point, because I think there's a lot of NBA teams right now that are scared to death of this new CBA and the new aprons. Yep. I don't really think a lot of teams want to be in the aprons. Like, you don't want to be in a situation like Cleveland's a good example. Like, Cleveland is in the apron right now. They're very taxed of what they can do. You look at their books and the guys that they've paid. Like, if they don't make the conference finals this year, like, they're probably trading Jared Allen. They're probably retooling. They might trade Darius Garland too. It's interesting.
And let's call a spade a spade. They're not that good right now. Like, if you look at the Cavaliers in the standings specifically, they're by Philly and Atlanta, which is I remember having the conversation at the beginning of the year. It's this is the Cavaliers conference finals to lose. This is they better get to the finals this year. But what we're finding and what we're constantly seeing over and over again is these teams that build through the draft, build young, don't go very deep into those those cap areas. Those are the teams that are doing well right now. And so that's kind of the other piece where it's for the Pistons, where it's you don't necessarily want to get deep into those aprons, because it's what success has that brought anyone thus far in this new era? It hasn't.
No, I mean, look what Boston did. They freaked out as soon as they got in the second apron. They traded Kristaps Porzingis and Drew Holiday immediately and retooled because they didn't want to be in the second apron, and they have new ownership, obviously, and that probably had some kind of factor. But just to kind of circle it back to Jalen Duren, if he does want that 5 years, 185, I think he's just got to prove it on the court. And, Trajan Langdon and the Pistons front office brass will have those conversations with him and Jaden Ivey this summer for contract extensions. But, man, we were talking about, 5 years, 125. We're like, yeah, we could do that, 130. We obviously had no idea that he was looking for closer to $40 million. We thought it was a $30 million thing.
Yeah. I mean, he radically changed the conversation of who he is and who he can be as a player overnight by some of the level, by the level of play that he's had this year. Just props to him, man. I mean, he's looking like the guy that I think we all knew he could be for years.
Yeah, I mean, the offensive growth is great to see. And he just turned 22.
Right.
It's not a saying that he can't keep continuing to develop, because you could kind of look at the contract as just investing long term. If he keeps developing his offensive game, matures more, locks in a little bit more consistently defensively, then maybe the contract does age gracefully, because the cap space will go up. I believe it's not going up 10% this year; it's going up 8%, but it's projected to go up 10% each year. So, that 37 million might not look as bad in a few years.
Only thing that will be interesting to see with the with those salary cap increases is obviously from the national media deal standpoint, I think everything's looking great right now. Ratings are up, everything's going really well from that standpoint. I think over the next couple of years, though, and like this could be a whole other podcast. I think we're about to see a real like reckoning and like confrontation of like the RSNs and like the regional sports networks and local viewership rights and all those different things. Like I think that model is going to change, and that could definitely have an impact. But all that to say, I think like with Jalen Duren, this is a good problem to have.
Yeah, I mean, you wanted someone to take a leap, and I don't think too many people this summer confidently could look you in the eye and say, "Yeah, Jalen Duren's taking that leap." It was like Asar Thompson. Everyone was like on the Asar train.
Yeah.
Obviously, Asar has taken leaps this year, but Jalen Duren has taken a huge leap in his offensive game, which I'm happy to see. I'm happy that he was able to kind of get those touches early on, because without Jaden Ivey, I mean, you kind of find out like what players are made of. Different guys step up. So him being able to put the ball on the floor, had the mid-range, post moves. I mean, he had like a little dream shake yesterday against Portland, against Robert Williams. I was like, oh man, that footwork was beautiful. So, I mean, I'm happy he's on the team. It'll be interesting to see what he does get, though, this summer.
Yeah, no question. Did you see our guy Eric ask Cade about his Cowboys Super Bowl prediction, by the way?
He did not.
He did.
What did he say?
He posted it on Twitter. I'll drop the link. I'll drop the link here in the chat. But
Eric, you troll.
Our guy Eric actually went there. That is so funny.
Oh man, I told Coley Davis to ask Cade if he thinks he's better than Dak Prescott, because he said a year ago on Funny Marco when he was with Bleacher Report that he could be the quarterback of the Cowboys. That's hilarious, man. Like as soon as he said that, the Lions just put belt to ass to the Cowboys.
Oh yeah, 100%. 100% Lions are like, all right, we heard that, Cade.
Cade walked out. I haven't watched it. I'm gonna watch it towards the end of the podcast when we hang up with you guys. But it'll be a treat for me to watch it. Shout out to Eric, man. Eric's just been asking some funny ass questions this year.
Yeah, absolutely. He has not been afraid to ask the elephant in the room questions for sure.
I know he asked JB about Bobby Portis, and JB's like, nope. It's like we're not focused on him at all. I think he finished with 1 point tonight. That's funny. Speaking of Milwaukee, I've never seen a superstar in Giannis ask for such a soft trade proposal, right? It's not like the Jimmy Butler where, he's not talking to the team, he's not showing up, he's late to flights. Like, it's like you hear whispers that Giannis wants to trade, but like then you also hear that he wants to be here. What was kind of like your takeaway? Because I saw a lot of Detroit Pistons fans saying like, hey, if Giannis is available, the Pistons should go all in. I mean, do you think the Pistons should be looking at a Giannis, a guy that's a top 5 player and a former MVP?
So here's the interesting thing about a Giannis Antetokounmpo trade conversation, right? Number one, Giannis, without a doubt, on the short list, top 3 at the very least of best players in the world when he's healthy and when he has everything going. He's one of those guys where you have to at least pick up the phone and hear what they're looking for as far as a trade offer goes. Here's a couple of things I would implore Pistons fans to keep in mind when having a discussion about a Giannis trade. The first thing I would say is when Trajan was brought into Detroit, the Pistons actually tried to interview general manager John Horst before they tried to interview Trajan Langdon. And the Milwaukee Bucks actually declined that interview request for the Pistons to interview their general manager. So if that's how the Bucks were with the Pistons just about a front office executive, I wonder how they're going to be about their franchise player. That's number one. Now let's say we clear that barrier. The Bucks aren't worried about division rivals or about Giannis ending up in the same conference. Like, let's say those things aren't the concern. Let's get to trade package, because this is where things get really complicated, because more than likely the Bucks, the way that they have set things up for themselves is they are like insane levels of like when you just look at like they don't own any of their picks. They don't have any cap space. There's no incentive for the Milwaukee Bucks to be bad. Truly.
Yeah.
For years. At least until I think literally there's no incentive for them to be bad until 2032. Legitimately. I think every year until then, they have either a first round pick that they don't own the right to, or they swapped the pick so they're going to get the worst of whatever the pick value is. So all that to be said, if they're going to trade Giannis, they either need to get really good players back. So Asar, Ron, like they're going to be asking like for Ivy, Asar, like they're going to be asking for multiple young prospects on top of the picks that the Pistons have. Now, in part, I think what makes a Pistons deal less interesting to Milwaukee is the fact that if you trade Giannis to Detroit and you get Detroit's picks back, well, those picks aren't going to be very good because you're going to have Cade Cunningham and Giannis on the same team for years. In theory, that's going to be an awesome regular season team at the very least. So those picks are going to be awful as far as like value. The other piece of that is, as well as, do you really, for Detroit, why they might not be as eager is, I don't know if you really want to give up, like Asar and probably an Isaiah Stewart and like by the time you trade Giannis, trade for Giannis, what's the supporting cast that you have around him? So when I look at teams that are like interesting Giannis teams, you have to look at teams like Atlanta where they own like a lot of other teams' picks. You have to look like San Antonio where they own young prospects and other teams' picks, right? Like those are the types of teams that are probably gonna have the best chance to get Giannis because they can give Milwaukee a really enticing package while also still fielding a good team around him. And I just don't think Detroit can do both.
I agree with what you said. The reason why I wanted to touch on this is because Pistons fans are very funny. Anytime a superstar is available, they are like, let's trade for him, right? It's just like death taxes and a superstar's available, let's trade for him, right? That's Pistons fans with just when a superstar wants out or it's available. And like, I get it. You want to pair Cade Cunningham with a top 5 player, former MVP, but it's going to be expensive. We touched on the second apron. And when you look at Giannis's contract, he signed a max deal. I mean, Cade and Giannis would be your team. You still have some guys that are on rookie deals, but you're eventually going to have to pay them. I think your team would be gutted. Your depth wouldn't be as strong as it is currently. You would have very little guys on your bench. You'd probably have a bunch of G leaguers that you converted the 2 ways or just vet minimums or try to sign, aging vets on vet minimums. I don't think Detroit is a Giannis team. Now, you mentioned Atlanta. I've heard Atlanta thrown out there. A lot of the teams that I've heard thrown out there have multiple draft picks. Like I've heard San Antonio, which I think would just be unfair.
Yep.
San Antonio has a bunch of picks from other teams.
Yep.
I've heard teams like Golden State kind of being thrown out there. I mean, Steph Curry and Giannis had said that they wanted to team up at some point. I mean, if you give freaking Steph Curry, Giannis, I will crash out. I'm just saying right now, I will crash out. I mean,
like, who would they even have though? Like, who's there? Like, oh, cool, we got Brandon Pajemski.
I think you would have to do like a 3-team trade. You'd have to get like maybe the Phoenix Suns involved. Like, maybe send Jimmy Butler to Phoenix, reroute Kuminga, Moses Moody, and the Warriors have some draft picks, but I feel like the Bucks, if they are going to move on from Giannis, they probably know that the draft picks that they're getting aren't going to be lottery bound. They probably want proven players back, right?
Yep.
That's why I think the Knicks make sense, even though they had conversations. Like I saw a trade package involving like Karl Anthony Towns and OG Anunoby. till Milwaukee, which I think would be a good package. Like if you don't want to start from ground zero, you still want to be somewhat competitive in Milwaukee. Like I think those are the type of players that they'll probably be looking at. They'll be looking for proven players personally.
Right.
I think where Detroit's at, they're in a very good spot because they have a young core that's building. I think eventually they will make a big splash like this, but I just don't think the time right now makes a whole lot of sense for a team that just got to the playoffs last year. I know a lot of Pistons fans want to go all in for a move. I understand it. I get it. I just don't think Giannis is the player that this front office is like really zeroing on in to pair next to Cade Cunningham for the next 5 years.
And to me, it's not even like let's say all that organizational stuff wasn't there, right? Like, because I think if I'm a Pistons fan who's been waiting for that star for a long time, if I'm like putting myself in the headspace of that person, I'd be hearing this conversation. And I think one of the questions I could see them like screaming at their TV right now is, if you don't trade for Giannis, then who do you trade for? Right? Like, I think like if you're thinking of like the quality of player and like the guy that could like get you over the hump, like from that concept, I understand where people are coming from. Right? I think you just have to throw in, like, unfortunately, this is not in a bubble. This is the reality of, if you're the Milwaukee Bucks, like if you're making this trade, there's a very realistic chance you're not getting a Giannis again, like for at least a decade, at least, based off of how things are going right now. There's very legitimate chances that they could be waiting another 1 or 2 decades on top of that. It took them about 40 or 50 years to get Giannis after Lou Alcindor, now known as Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, left Milwaukee. Okay, so like when we're talking about the fears and the things that go into some of these decision making, this is real. Okay, yeah. So like I think when you just throw in all those aspects, plus just the other thing of, if you're trading your star player, like Milwaukee, why in God's green earth would you want to have to see that player 4 times a year?
Right.
Like realistically, like one of the worst things about the Luka trade for Mavericks fans is that you have to see Luka 4 times a year. Plus, if you're going to be making the playoffs, you have to go through him now too. You know, like that's like, if you're a Bucks fan, like at least send them to the West so that whatever fake conceptions I have of us being anything, I don't have to think about. Like I don't have to think about him being in the way of it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, if he does get dealt, which I'm not really sure if he does or not. It's just been like, I can't remember the last time that there was like a MVP, like a top 5 player, arguably when he's healthy, like asked for a trade. Like obviously, like Luka never really asked for a trade. He just got traded.
Like Durant.
Yeah, I mean, like
even then, was he really that guy when he asked for the trade?
I mean, he was coming off an injury. I mean, it's just so weird because you hear 2 different sides of like what is actually going on behind the scenes. Like I know Chris Haynes said that he had talked to Giannis, and Giannis is like, no, it's like, I want to be in Milwaukee. He's like, I want to build this thing through. I mean, Giannis had talked about not taking the easy way out. I feel like a lot of Bucks fans would dig that tweet up, that interview up. Him saying like, you know, the way I won this championship is, you know, the hard way. Is like, I value the hard way. If you go to a team that's like stacked with young talent or, you know, draft picks, like I think a lot of Bucks fans would bring it up. But just to circle back for Pistons fans, I don't think that the organization is looking to trade Giannis. I was listening to Trajan. He was on Rick Bucher's podcast, which I don't even know he had a podcast. I had no idea. Like outside of like First Things First, he does
I'm laughing because I had no idea either.
Dude, I went down this rabbit hole. Like he had Trajan on his YouTube channel and it got 10 views. I'm like, bro, what?
Yeah, I saw like Woj had JB Bickerstaff on his podcast like a day or 2 ago, and that only has like 320.
Yeah, I'm like, what the hell, man? Like, what's going on? But I was listening to this podcast and how it relates to the Giannis conversation we were just having. Trajan had mentioned his time in San Antonio with Greg Popovich and RC Buford. And he said that like the Spurs had a chance to get a Hall of Fame player, a small forward, and he was surprised when the Spurs didn't go out and get him. And kind of like the continuity that the Spurs had and the patience of just kind of, growing with their core, which was like Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, and Tim Duncan. And it made me think of kind of what he has in Detroit right now with like Cade Cunningham, Jalen Duren, and maybe it's possibly Asar Thompson, right? Like maybe maybe Trajan kind of tries to take that same kind of approach in San Antonio because he's been under like a lot of great basketball minds. Like after listening to that podcast, which if you guys haven't seen it, I'll link it after we're done because there's no way you're gonna find it on YouTube.
Yeah, it's utterly insane how the amount of podcasts that are out there nowadays. It's unreal. But I mean, I'll tell you what, man. Like when you think of like the job that Trajan's gonna have over the next couple of years and all the decisions that he's gonna have to make, don't envy him one bit. Not one iota.
No, I don't envy Trajan at all because I think he has a lot of difficult decisions to make, and it's funny because like when he first came in, like he said, yeah, I didn't think this team was going to make the playoffs, and then they make the playoffs, and the very next year, the number 1 seed. He's probably like, man, what the fuck?
Yeah. Well, like, yeah, when he came in, I remember his first like media day, he said something to the effect of like, we have a long way to go before we're having the championship conversation. And it's like, was that long way like a year and a half? Was that long way like just like a hop, skip, and a jump?
I feel like every time he says something, the complete opposite happens.
Yeah, and like I don't think it's him like lying. I think it's just like things just going like I think it's just his guys just completely surpassing his expectations.
It's honestly hilarious, like because like I remember him saying like, yeah, I didn't think it was a playoff team. Like he said it in multiple like interviews. I remember he before the season started, he was at a conference with like JB Bickerstaff and Greg Kelser. I think it was like at the Detroit Business Club or Economic Club, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And he's like, I didn't think that this team was going to make the playoffs. He's like, I actually wasn't going to make a move until like a week before the trade deadline. He's like, because I didn't even know, like, is this team, like, are we going to be buyers? And like, it took him that long to actually buy in. So, I mean, again, do not envy the guy whatsoever. I think he has a lot of good problems to have. You could probably ask him straight up. He probably didn't think the Detroit Pistons would be 19-5 right now.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I think they were very excited about what this season could be. I know that for a fact. He said it himself. JB said at the beginning of the year, this is the most excited he's been about a season going into it that he's been as a coach. I don't think he would tell you that they would only have 5 losses right now.
Yeah, Pistons fan 11 said he said 28 wins in that interview. Like, yeah, man, like that's honestly funny. He was just like, yeah, if they got 28 wins, it'd be a successful season for last year.
Yeah,
they won 44.
So, yeah, they're like, yeah, if we could contend for a play-in spot, that's a successful season. And then it came down to, they almost had home court in the first round.
Yeah, I mean they were like fighting for that 5th, 4th seed like the last week of the season.
Yeah, there was a point where it looked like they could have been the 3rd seed.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. We have one more topic for tonight's podcast, and I think a lot of you guys will like this because it is pretty trade centric. So, good people over at Bleacher Report made an article talking about trade targets for every NBA team, which, I thought it was like a pretty good, like kind of just an idea. So for the Detroit Pistons, they had these 3 players, Sean, and we can kind of talk about them individually. So Trey Murphy from the New Orleans Pelicans, Michael Porter Jr., don't put a podcast mic in front of Michael Porter Jr., and Lauri Markkanen. So I don't know which player you want to start with first, but I'll let you do it since you're the guest on this podcast.
Yeah, I mean, we can start with Michael Porter Jr. because that one's really easy. We can just go, no. He just doesn't fit what this team's about. Doesn't fit if you're talking about getting the right people in the locker room. I don't even think it's about the content of what he said. I mean, if he threw in the content of what he said, that probably would disqualify him too. But the fact that he could potentially even be a distraction at all like that, I just don't think they would want that. To me, that's like a pretty easy, I just don't see it. Now the Trey Murphy name, that's the one that makes my ears perk up a little bit, because you have New Orleans having a bit of a sideways season, things not going well. You have a team that pretty clearly wants to start heading towards a rebuild around Derek Queen, around Jeremiah Fears, around like some of these, intriguing prospects that they have. And in being realistic, they're not going to get the assets that they want to rebuild by just trading Zion Williamson. That's going to be an Andre Drummond level return where it's like, okay, we're just getting him off our books. Whereas with, someone like a Trey Murphy, that's someone that could potentially command, some assets and be a really interesting player. And it's someone that we've talked about for a long time as someone that fits the mold. Oh yeah. And he also was a Trajan in New Orleans. So just a lot of those make a ton of sense. And quite frankly, based off of all reports, it would cost infinitely less than going to get Lauri Markkanen, who's the third player on this list, which we've talked before about how great of a player Lauri Markkanen is. He's awesome. Like, if we're just in a vacuum going and getting a basketball player without worrying about what the returns are, yeah, go get that guy. He's great. However, makes a lot of money. He is 28, almost 30. So you wonder how much longer this run is gonna go on for as far as this level of play. And quite frankly, I know I personally don't want anything to do with trading with Danny Ainge. So I imagine I'm not the only one on that.
Yeah. Michael Porter Jr., I agree with you. And it has nothing to do with his basketball skill. I think he's a very skilled basketball player. I think offensively, he's probably what a lot of Pistons fans are looking at for like just secondary, third option. The guy can score the basketball. I think the reason why I would probably be out on Michael Porter Jr. is I don't know him. I don't know him personally. I don't. I think that he would be a very big distraction in a Pistons locker room. I don't really think that you hear JB and Trajan talk about good character, culture setters. I don't really know if he fits the bill of that's a Detroit Piston. Does the talent outweigh the distraction? I don't think so. I know the Nets owner basically told him no more podcast.
Yeah. From what I heard with his time in Denver, one of the phrases that someone told me was, it was apparent right away he didn't need a microphone. And also the way, like the vibe of like the way that it was, just kind of described to me, it almost just kind of felt like Antonio Brown in Pittsburgh, where it was like, once he got out of the walls of a stable organization, you can just kind of start to see some of the other stuff leak out. And this isn't an Antonio Brown level talent or like producer on, like, this isn't that level of comparison from NFL to NBA. So
I like him as a basketball player. I just think I don't really know if the talent outweighs the possible headache that could come. I don't know for a fact if you put him in this Detroit Pistons locker room, if the antics would still be the antics that he's having in Brooklyn. And obviously, like, you could kind of contextualize being on a rebuilding team, not having a really good team. You might act a certain type of way, but I think he's talented. Brooklyn could probably get a haul for him personally if they really want to just ship them and continue to stockpile draft picks. Their last draft was puzzling to me. I don't know why you draft 5 guards and you only play one of them. It's the wildest thing.
Yeah, quite literally the throwing darts at a board and seeing what sticks method. Never seen it in professional sports before.
Yeah, no, it's weird. So second guy on that list was Trey Murphy. I think Trey Murphy to me is very appealing because he does play small forward, but I think the way the NBA is trending, he could definitely be a stretch four. Maybe not every night, but I think he would fit on this team really well. Obviously, you look at the contract he has. His contract, I think, is probably the best out of everyone on this list. He doesn't make an absurd amount of money whatsoever. It's honestly puzzling, like what he's actually under contract.
I forgot, by the way, I forgot how bad things were in New Orleans this year.
Mm-hmm.
You know what their record is off the top of your head?
Do they have 5 wins or no?
No. They're 3-20.
Shit.
They haven't won a basketball game. Okay, they won November 24th. That's better when I thought it was going to be. But they went they won November 4th and 5th, and they went almost 3 weeks without winning a basketball game. So like even looking at some of the stats, and like I know people have been worried about like some of the production and like some of the dips from Trey Murphy. I would wager he's one of those guys that he just needs to get into a competitive environment again. Like I think he's one of those guys who he needs to feel something as a competitor again.
Yeah, I know you mentioned that's a Trajan draft pick as well.
Yeah.
We have former Detroit Pistons executives in the front office now, in Joe Dumars and in Troy Weaver. I know how probably trade conversations would go. Troy would probably want Isaiah Stewart back. That's not going to happen. I don't really know what New Orleans is looking to do.
Well, I'll tell you this. I mean, we know one thing about Troy Weaver. We know he likes reacquiring assets and players that he likes. I wouldn't be surprised if he would want to give Jaden Ivey a fresh start and a place to try and reboot his career. Like I know they already have Jeremiah Fears. I know they already have Jordan Poole. That hasn't stopped Troy Weaver from massively overstocking at a position before. But like it's one of those things where there's a lot of things there where, like you said, relationally, there's already ties. There's already been transactions that have been made between the two teams in the past. And like, it's just, when you talk about the type of player that he just fits what the bill of what they're looking for, it's Trey Murphy to me.
Not to mention, like, we need 3-point shooting this year desperately. Like we're not the same perimeter shooting team we were last year. And it's so evident. Like Duncan Robinson being back these past 2 games, you can just see the gravity that he kind of gets defensively from opposing teams. And it opens up so much for the Pistons. Getting another caliber shooter like a Trey Murphy, I think, is a no-brainer. I just think it's probably going to cost you a couple draft picks, which I would be completely fine with because I think he's a type of player that he can grow with Cade Cunningham. Someone had mentioned it in the live chat that as soon as he saw Cade Cunningham and Trey Murphy work out together in a summer run together, he could kind of see the chemistry and like what it could possibly look like. I would love a Trey Murphy on this team. I've always been a fan of his from afar. I'm sure Trajan would love to have one of his guys back in Detroit as well. And it's kind of funny. He has not actually brought in any of his guys that he's drafted in New Orleans yet.
Yeah. I mean, I would imagine if there was a guy that he would want to bring in, I think Trey Murphy would be kind of the top of the list.
Yeah, Trey Murphy or Herb Jones, I think, are probably the two that he would probably try to target.
I mean, Fred Vinson worked pretty well with Trey Murphy in his time in New Orleans.
Yeah, that too. Herb Jones. I feel like Herb Jones is just going to be a Laker. I feel it. I feel it in my core.
Yeah, I mean, Herb Jones, like that's one that's hard to predict, but it's like I know that, again, like if there are guys from New Orleans, I think they would go out and get. It would probably be those 2 guys at the top of the list if I were to guess.
Someone on Facebook says that we need James Wiseman or Kevin Knox to sweeten the deal. You guys are trolls.
throw in Sadiq to sweeten it.
I forgot he was back in New Orleans. I did not know they only had 3 wins. That's crazy. I thought they at least had 5.
But dude,
I haven't been paying attention.
Oh, dude, and it's bad. Like if you go to their because if you go to like Basketball Reference, they'll show you the game results as like kind of like the red and green bars of if they've won or lost. It's a lot of deep red bars that go very far down.
Bro, that's so sad. They
Uh-huh.
fell off so hard. I saw earlier today, and we'll talk about Larry Markin in a minute, that you could get into a Pelicans game on TickPick for free. The
Yeah.
tickets were $0.
Yeah, like I like it is starting to get to a point where like it is getting uncomfortably real. The conversations about relocation are getting about New Orleans. Like uncomfortably real. And it's crazy because you look back at the 2019 draft class and you look at when Memphis and New Orleans both went 1 and 2 in that lottery. Like, do you remember like New Orleans, like their season ticket line, like they sold out like that night. And like with Memphis, their hype was very real too. And now, just 6 short years later, if you're having a conversation of who are the 2 most likely teams to be relocated in the NBA, it is New Orleans and Memphis in that same order.
I throw Dallas in there, but hey, that's just me. If you know, you know. If you know, you know. The owners there,
After the Cooper Flag thing, like if they took Cooper Flag with them to Vegas, I think Patrick Dumont legit might get like he might have to up his security. That's all I'll say to keep you monetized.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't. That would be honestly funny, but yeah. Poor Pelicans. I didn't know it was going to be that bad. I see them definitely rebuilding. I mean, they even said like if we get a good offer for Zion, he's out the door. But I don't think so many teams are lining up for Zion Williamson outside of Charlotte, maybe. But I mean,
Yeah. Patrick Dumont might want to be careful, otherwise they might be consuming their food through a straw.
yeah. So the last guy the Bleacher Report mentioned was Lauri Markkanen. Now we've talked about him, I think, multiple times over the last year or so. It sounds like there was actually an internal conversations with the Pistons and the Jazz. Danny Ainge asked for Asar Thompson. It was reported by your buddy Jake Fisher, and that's not going to happen.
Yeah, it's
You're
like I
not.
hang up the phone, like, all right, cool, click.
Yeah. If you remember, Danny Ainge tried to trade up with the Pistons at 5. Because I believe the Jazz had 2 draft picks that year. They really wanted Asar Thompson. They settled for Keontae George and Taylor Hendricks. So, I mean, there's always been appeal from Danny Ainge and Asar Thompson just with his defense. Utah doesn't really have a lockdown defender like an Asar Thompson on the roster, but I think for Lauri, the price is going to be very expensive to pry him away from Danny Ainge. And I don't really think you're going to hand over 3-4 draft picks and your best perimeter defender for Lauri Markkanen. I just don't think it makes a lot of sense when you're trying to build a team to eventually win a championship. I said last week, Sean, I think if the Pistons do make moves, it's very marginal and it's 3-point shooting. I mean, I told you and Eric, like some of the guys that I think they could target, like a Dante DiVincenzo, even though him and Ron kind of tried to choke each other out. I mean, him and Duncan kind of fought too. I mean, I feel like Dante and Ron would probably hug it out. That would be a 3-point shooter I'd love on the Detroit Pistons. And Minnesota's season is kind of going on a seesaw and teetering. You know, 1 week they're hot, next week they're not. So I mean, and they need a point guard right now, really desperately too.
Yeah, there's a lot of teams right now where things are not quite going as expected. And I definitely think, I think we're going to see trade conversations intensify quite a bit throughout the league. I just think, with a guy like Lauri, he's just one of those guys where the value is just never quite matched the reality to me. Again, I know he's playing awesome hoops right now. I know offensively he's piecing a lot of things together. He looks like an all-star, caliber player. He looks exactly like that type of player that you could slot in. I know he's played under JB. There's a lot of things that make sense. Until Utah has a different frame of mind about what that price is going to be, then that's just where we're at. That's just what it is.
Yeah, I mean, they even reported this week that they're trying to build around Lauri now that teams don't want to give them, 5-6 draft picks for Lauri Markkanen. I mean, for crying out loud, John, he was trying to get 2 first-round picks for Walker Kessler.
Right. It's like at that point, if you're not willing to, like, if you're just not willing to move off of him, off of anything you've heard. Like if you have a price that people just aren't willing to reach for, what's the point of trying to keep moving him? Like, what's the point of keep having this conversation? So like I mean, again, like I think if there is like I definitely think Detroit is a team that makes sense if it's like a reasonable like trade package or more like agreeable upon compensation package, but we just haven't heard that yet. It just keeps going in the wrong direction.
Yeah, I mean, like, I know you touched that on Twitter about just the Pistons' lack thereof of 3-point shooting, and how much they do rely on Duncan Robinson. And you touched on just like what he's been to this team and the presence and the signing that the Pistons had with him this year. But like, I honestly think though, like at this deadline, their needs this year is perimeter shooting.
Yeah.
I mentioned Dante DiVincenzo. Grayson Allen could be a fit. He reminds me of like a mini Bill Laimbeer.
Yeah.
Like he could shoot threes. He might make an occasional dirty play. I feel like
Bill
him and
Laimbeer was a guard, it'd be Grayson Allen without a doubt.
he's taken such a stride in his 3-point shooting too. I don't think a lot of people realize what a good 3-point shooter he's been over the past couple of seasons. Obviously, he's a different type of 3-point shooter than Duncan Robinson, but I feel like he's a player that could really help this team out. I don't know how you feel about him.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think he makes a lot of sense as well. I mean, anyone that just kind of fits that mold, like you said, of bringing additional shooting. I don't think they need to go get someone that's like a world beater as far as anything like that. Grayson Allen is like he is one of those guys where when the dirty plays aren't the conversation, like the reason he's still in the league is because he's a legitimately good basketball player. And especially when you look at like what he's done in Phoenix, like he's really raised his level of play quite considerably compared to where he has been. And he definitely fits that identity and that mold of like what Detroit's about. And I mean, Trajan, former Duke guy, so he definitely knows like what what Grayson Allen's all about as far as like that regard goes. I want to do some more research and kind of like go team to team and just see, like what potential pieces could be available come the deadline, because I do think we're going to start seeing some teams do some disgusting things to tank and put themselves like,
oh yeah,
and I don't even think it's just to get the number one overall pick. I think teams are going to be fighting over each other to get into the top 5, so I think you're going to see a lot of teams like go, hey, maybe this isn't our year. And maybe like you said, maybe in Minnesota, maybe they recognize there's only so much we can do as far as continuing to hit our head on this wall of getting to the conference finals every year. Cause it's like, let's say they even just figure things out right now as is with this group. Is there anything about what we've seen from them that says they could beat Houston, Denver, or OKC?
No, because like when Lori got Laurie Markin on the brain. When Rudy Gobert is off the court, they're a horrific defensive team.
Yep.
And I know they drafted a French prospect that I think in a few years he'll probably take over for Rudy Gobert, but I don't think he's ready right now. Only reason why I mentioned Dante DiVincenzo is because I know he can put the ball on the floor. I know he can shoot threes, play some defense, talk some shit. I think a lot of Pistons fans would really just kind of fall in love with the guy. I mean, there are other players that I've looked at, like Gary Trent, who we just saw tonight. I mean, he's a good 3-point marksman as well. He might be a pretty gettable, kind of considering the Bucks. I mean, AJ Green, he killed the Pistons this week with his 3-point shooting. I mean, there's a lot of under the radar 3-point specialists that I think that the Pistons could target. I mean, Chicago doing Chicago things. They're being buyers.
Right. I mean, they didn't want Malik Monk in the summer for what they could have gotten him. I wonder if that price has gone down quite considerably, seeing that they're not doing much better than New Orleans over in Sacramento right now.
Yeah,
a lot of more deep red bars on Basketball Reference.
Yeah, I mean, Malik Monk actually does 2 things that you need. You need more playmaking and you need 3-point shooting.
Yep.
And I know that there were reports of the Pistons, being internally interested in Malik Monk and the whole Dennis Schroeder thing. And you have a trade exception as well, which I think more Pistons fans are probably going to be talking about over these next, 2 months. Like the Dennis Schroeder sign and trade, you got, 14 million of a TPE. So you can use that to, get trades. I don't know if they're going to use their full trade exception. They might use a little bit of it just to kind of even out the salary. But Malik Monk's an interesting name.
Can I
Haven't
float out
heard
another
her.
name?
Yeah.
What do you think of Kobe White?
Love it.
Like, if you're able to bring in like $12 million expiring contract, he's averaging about 24 points a game right now. He's definitely someone where at the very least he'd be a rental. But he's, you're probably bringing him in with the desire of wanting to, like bring him into the fold long term. He's not even 26 yet. So, like when you talk about like timeline, like fits a lot there. And I don't want to have this conversation tonight because I know we're probably going to be having it ad nauseum going forward. But I think you would have a lot more clarity with him as your two guard than another certain young Pistons guard at the moment.
Yeah, I talked about this last week, and a lot of Pistons fans got upset over it because they're like, you have Sasser, you have Ivy. What are you gonna do with Kobe White? I was like, well, one of those guys is probably involved in the trade. So he's been a guard that I think has been underappreciated. And
Yep.
I thought once they traded Zach LaVine, he really started to put solid games together, like great games together. And Chicago, they have kind of like a three-headed monster with their guards. They have Josh Giddey, they have Trey Jones, and they have Kobe White. I don't know if they're willing to move on from him. I know Vinny Goodwill had touched on, him being a possible trade candidate with the Bulls, but the Bulls look like they want to be buyers and try to compete for that play-in tournament. They started off the season really red hot, but they've kind of come back down to earth. It's a team that reminds me so much of the very early Andre Drummond-led Pistons where we were okay competing for 8 seeds every damn year. But I mean they're buyers, man. Like I don't understand it whatsoever.
I mean they they might think they're buyers right now, but like they just lost by almost 20 to the Pacers yesterday.
Yeah.
Like if things continue to head in this direction, and because the only way I could conceivably like see Chicago be a buyer is like, let's say they can somehow bring in Anthony Davis and get like bring the star home, right? And like make the Bulls interesting again. I don't even think that's as clad and set in stone, because once they threw in once they threw in Ryan Nembhard into the lineup and Anthony Davis has been back, Dallas is starting to look more competitive. And realistically speaking, if they keep winning games, they're losing their incentive to lose a whole lot of games too. So it's just gonna be like Chicago is just one of those situations where, like you said, if you're just operating upon logic, they would have blown things up years ago.
Yeah.
But
yeah, they almost won the lottery last year. They got hosed. Yeah. In the pre-lottery, they won it. And then I've never seen a lottery like last year. Like one team falling, sure. But Sean, there were so many teams that fell in that lottery last year.
It's crazy. If you go back and look statistically, like if Josh Giddey didn't hit that half-court shot against the Lakers to win like that crazy game, the Bulls get Cooper Flagg.
Yeah.
Like a game winner that everyone was like hyped about in the moment. It's like, all right, cool. Imagine finding out that cost you Cade Cunningham. Like imagine like the Pistons made a half-court shot and that would have cost you Cade Cunningham.
Oh, man. Yeah. I mean, you're stuck with Jalen Green instead, or Evan Mobley.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's no guarantee. Like,
right.
We have no
idea.
Except
for Chicago, it wasn't the difference between 1 and 2, like with Detroit. It was the difference of 1 and 13.
I know. That's what I'm saying. Like the draft lottery last year was crazy.
Yeah.
this year's draft, I haven't really got too into it because we've been winning so much, but I haven't.
Yeah, I haven't even had to think about it.
I've been watching a lot of college basketball. I like the kid Boozer out of Duke. I think Peterson is going to go. Like if he goes to Atlanta with their pick, I think they trade Trae Young.
I mean, I think they should trade Trae Young anyway, based off of how they've been playing without him.
Yeah.
Like I think Jalen Johnson, like I think he's proven he's your franchise player. He just had his second triple double in 2 nights.
He had it at halftime.
Like what else does Atlanta need to see? Like that's your guy.
He's I know Grant Hill because he's a minority owner with the Hawks.
Yep.
He loves Jalen Johnson.
Yep. Speaking of potential mentors for Cade Cunningham, by the way.
Yeah, hey, you never know. You never know. But yeah, I mean, Atlanta has played a lot better with him out. I mean, Nickeil Alexander-Walker has been such a good fit for them. I don't even know where you would trade Trae Young to. I don't see a lot of teams.
Sacramento.
Do you hate the man?
No, I don't hate. I'm not a Trae Young truther. I'm just thinking of who, like, what team. I really, realistically, I know we've talked before offline. Like, I know Orlando is always been like a really fun Trae Young concept. I feel like if you're looking at like other potential teams, like I feel like the Clippers are so desperate that any level of like star power, or like, even though that doesn't make any sense because they have James Harden, but like, I mean, the Clippers are going to clip at this point. It just feels like that's like Sacramento. They just need anything at this point to get people excited. Anything.
I know you're talking about the Clippers, and I actually started this comment from our guy Rocky because he's really funny, and I want to put it on the screen because it's just pure chaos. He said, "I'd very much like to see Zion go to the Clippers just for the drama, just for entertainment purposes."
Oh, if you want to talk about the drama, I want to see LaMelo go to the Clippers for the same reason. If you want to talk about like my petty ass, I want to see LaMelo go to the Clippers.
I honestly feel like we're going to see a lot of trades at this deadline, and the return on these stars are going to be like dirt. It's not.
Oh yeah.
It's not going to be high. It's not going to be multiple draft picks. It might be like players and like a second, like just a stash of second round picks, or maybe a very heavily protected first round pick. Like
I think there's a couple things like at play here. Like I was even listening to Ryan Windhorst like talk about like what the return for a Giannis trade would look like, and he's like he's even been saying like, just based off of what I've heard, it's not going to be like multiple stars and all these picks. Like I think you're seeing, based off of what's happening with the Clippers right now, based off of what the Thunder are doing, but then on top of that, just how strenuous and crazy this salary system is. I think you're seeing more teams going, the most valuable commodity in the league right now is a first round pick. And so like we can't conceivably trade a lot of those. Like even Oklahoma City, like people are like, oh, well, why don't they just go and trade for Giannis and give up a lot of those picks? Like they could just, they could just become mega unstoppable. Well, the reality of like what makes those first round picks so dangerous for OKC in particular is they're going to be able to supplement all these guys that they're going to eventually have to let walk, because they're just not going to be able to pay everybody because they keep getting all these awesome players. Like AJ Mitchell, for example, right now is like going off and being incredible for the Thunder. Let's say for whatever reason, like a team wants to pay him like 30 or 40 million a year. Oh no, they have 4 lottery picks next year to go and replace whoever they're going to lose.
Yeah, it's crazy. I had to look up where AJ Mitchell was drafted because, like, I'll be completely.
Oh yeah, I already saw this the other day. It's painful. Go ahead.
Yeah, I know. I'm not gonna say his name, but like, go look where AJ Mitchell was drafted.
Because, I'll say it for you. It's okay. I'm okay with people hating me. He was drafted the pick after Bobby Klintman. Key pick after Bobby Klintman was AJ Mitchell, which no disrespect to Bobby Klintman. That's just that this isn't a Bobby Klintman problem. This isn't blaming the Pistons. This just shows you like what a crapshoot the second round can be. But you go and look at that and it's like, man.
OKC, the way they draft players, like they had a lottery pick this year. And I remember watching the draft. They drafted this big, I believe, out of Georgia or Georgia Tech. I don't remember what college he went to. And I remember watching the draft, and everyone's just like, wow, really? Like, I had this guy projected like, 25 to 30, and he goes like lottery, right?
Yep.
And he, like, I believe tore his ACL or had some kind of like surgery, and he's going to be out for the remainder of the year. And it's just like, OKC doesn't even need any more talent. Like, Nikola Topic, who was drafted in the lottery, he still hasn't played, and he's going through like procedures of like where he had testicular cancer, and it's just like they have so much talent, Sean. It almost gets to the point where like I'm listening to other podcasters, and they want to have something called the Presti rule, where teams can't have multiple draft picks like OKC because it's unfair.
That is insane. Like, I mean, that just speaks to just the level that he's operating at in comparison to everyone else in regards to evaluation. But also it's like, you gotta wonder how many owners right now are just so pissed at Steve Ballmer in the Clippers. Just not only because of the fact that they just completely just allowed, Oklahoma City to just essentially build a dynasty off the backs of like one of the worst, if not the worst trade in the history of professional sports. But on top of that, you throw in all the unwanted attention that the Clippers are getting with this aspiration stuff.
Oh my God.
And like all these owners, like, do you have any idea the potential like doors you're opening here for investigation? Like all the owners are like, all the stuff that I have in my closet that could be dug up by Pablo Torre now.
Yeah, so I was just curious to see how many draft picks OKC has.
Too many.
So they have the Rockets pick this year, which is currently sitting at 26. So that'll probably be a late first.
Yep.
They have Philly's pick.
Yep.
Currently sitting at 19. And then you kind of go up. They have Utah's pick, but that is top 9 protected. Utah's currently sitting at 9.
Yeah, they're not getting that pick.
And then they have the Clippers pick that's sitting at 4.
I think like I there's a very real chance that we are going to be sitting there on lottery day and the Oklahoma City Thunder at the very least have a top 3 pick.
Yeah, I mean,
like do not be shocked. Like if anything, like I know the Clippers, they might try and make a trade to save their season. Like who knows what they're going to do. I mean, they got rid of Chris Paul, which shows that they can literally do anything at this point, although they technically still have his contract under the books. So,
weird.
Like they might be trying and like include him in whatever moves they make financially. But I just don't see, because it's like, what's the piece that like, what are the desirable assets that they have? There's only 2. It's James Harden, who like, you're not getting much for like a 30-plus-year-old James Harden, who we saw yet again crap the bed in a game 7 last year. And then the other guy is Zubac, which no disrespect to Zubac, but if that's your best asset, then good God.
It's funny. So I was scrolling the timeline this week, and I see these guys, they had a podcast about the Pistons. I could only take about 30 minutes of it. And I let them know, like, I didn't agree with their assessment of the team whatsoever. So this Nick reporter says, if I'm the Pistons, I would trade for James Harden and pair him next to Cade Cunningham. And it took everything in me, because I wrote something really mean. I was like, you know what? I'll be civil. I said, I just disagree with everything you said. James Harden would be a disaster next to Cade Cunningham.
What? There are so many things that come to mind, but I'll just say the most PG inappropriate one. I cannot think of a player that would be a worse pairing with JB Bickerstaff as a coach
Right.
than James Harden as a player, especially at this age. And you talk about like all the things that James Harden needs to succeed. Like even at this age, he still needs the ball in his hands pretty much at all times.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Which if you watch Kate Cunningham play basketball, you kind of want the ball in his hands a lot.
Yeah,
I mean,
like I said, it took me about 30 minutes, and I'm watching this, and I was like, okay, I had to look up this guy. I was like, oh, he's a Knicks reporter. He just wants the Pistons to go away.
Yeah,
I got you. I got you. Sabotage.
You know what? Like as a sheer like basketball fan, agent of chaos. Like you know what would be my favorite Zubac team?
Who's that?
Boston.
Oh, that would make sense.
Like they need a big badly. He's someone that could come in, shore in as at the very least is just like a very reliable rim protector and as a really good rebounder. Like I know that they're not really in a position where like they're looking to win anything this year necessarily, but like don't look now. They're 14-9. Like they're right there with Orlando and Miami. Like they're better than Cleveland right now.
Yeah, I mean they have a good system. I think Zubac would fit in there as well because he's white. That team has I swear, man, they have the most white guys in the NBA. I've never you know it's true. Boston has so many white guys, and people in Boston be like, "Hey, he's white."
I mean, I can't say you're wrong. Like I can't, like historically speaking, I just can't dispute that argument.
I mean, look at Danny Ainge. He came from Boston. Look how many white guys he has in Utah. Perfect city for it.
Well, I mean, that's Utah. That's just like, I mean, they're just that's where it is, man.
Yeah. I know I'm wild in the night, man.
I was gonna say we might want to press the end live stream on before we get any deeper before I get in trouble for talking about Utah.
So 2 white guys saying that Boston's a white city, we might get canceled for it.
Oh
I guess, man, we're prejudiced on our own skin color, I guess. I know he's European and he's not white. Like I know that, but I know some people probably say they get my sense of humor, they get the joke. Other people might not find that funny, but
I did see someone say just because we were talking about Boston, I saw someone say, "What about Anthony Simons?"
Yeah, I was gonna put that on the screen actually.
Yeah, he's one of those like Anthony Simons is one of those guys where like offensively he can piece a lot of things together, but like he's kind of been struggling to consistently have a spot in Boston's rotation or like have like a defined role. And on top of that, statistically speaking, Anthony Simons is one of the worst defensive players in basketball. I think he literally is statistically the worst defensive player in the NBA. At least he has been in years past.
Oh yeah, 100%. He's not a good defender, but if you're just talking about bucket getter,
for sure,
a guy that if you need a bucket in a moment, like I've seen that him just go for 45 on any given night. Yep. I think his role in Boston is really weird. And I think it's an adjustment period for him because he was starting a lot of games in Portland. And funny enough, Shaedon Sharpe is actually coming off the bench, and that's who Chauncey Billups was starting over Anthony Simons. And now Thiago Splitter has him coming off the bench. But I like him as an offensive threat. I don't know if he would be a solution as a long-term 2 guard. I think the Pistons are still trying to puzzle that together because I don't even think they know who's going to be their long-term 2 guard and what the backcourt of the future may look like. I think a lot of people still have stock in Jaden Ivey. I would just say Jaden Ivey to me is actually a better defender than Anthony Simons, and that's not saying a whole lot because Jaden Ivey isn't really known for his defense. I mean, he hacks like a mofo. Still, but I mean, that could just be him, still rehabbing on that leg because I thought, last year he did show a little bit of progressions of at least staying in front of his opponent, but I wouldn't be opposed to Anthony Simons. I think it's an intriguing piece. And I know when Boston, as soon as they traded for him, they're like, yeah, he's available if you want him. I was like, what?
I think he's to me, he's in the Cam Thomas class of players where you can without a question see that he's good enough to be in this league. You can see that he is very good at putting the ball in the basket. Like there's no questioning that. But I think what is pretty clear, and I think like what is hard to decipher is what it's like, okay, but like what is their value? Like what is their value really in this league? Like what is, because right now, like let's say if Detroit were to trade for him, like he like currently Anthony Simons, he's on an expiring deal, but his salary this year is 27 million, which you're not paying that entire 27 million salary, but you're figuring that into your salary cap. And so like just for this season, that would be taking up a pretty significant chunk. So like it's just one of those things where like what is the market for an Anthony Simons going forward? Like does he even get to 10 million? I'm imagining he's probably not going to want a 100% pay cut.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's interesting. The Pistons could definitely use their trade exception, and you would only really have to, match $14 million of salary. And
Yeah.
if you wanted to do that for like an expiring, I think there's ways that, Trajan Langdon and Michael Blackstone could kind of get a deal done there. But I think it's kind of in the right ballpark of like the type of players that they might look to be targeting. I think they're just looking for playmakers and 3-point shooters because
Yep.
that's what they need right now. Like they desperately miss Dennis Schroeder. Like they really do. Like they're still trying to figure out who's going to be the backup point guard. I mean, I don't know how many times this week I've seen Dennis Jenkins take a stab at it. Karis LeVert try to play point guard when it's not really his natural position. And then Jaden Ivey on a minute restriction tried to do it. I mean, I think JB's just trying to see who's going to be that backup point guard because I don't even think they know right now who's going to be that. Like come playoff times, like who's going to be leading the second unit.
And unfortunately, it's like Dennis Schroeder's like it's almost kind of like the Jeremy Grant problem where it's like you miss him right away of like what the impact that he brings. But unfortunately, the millisecond he signed his name on the dotted line for the amount of money that he got, it became like he can never come back. It's like, unfortunately, like even like with how I know things have not been going great for Dennis Schroeder in Sacramento. I mean, it's just been like Sacramento's just a disaster in general. That's not even a Dennis Schroeder fault. It's just unfortunately like, unless things change, I just don't see a world where Dennis Schroeder just doesn't play out that contract in Sacramento.
Yeah, I mean, get the money while you can, man. Like I don't blame him whatsoever for getting the bag in Sacramento.
Oh, I don't either. I don't think Sacramento is going to be able to move him. Like I think they are stuck together now because of that deal. And unfortunately, this might be his last stop of his career.
Yeah, no,
I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong.
I saw some reporting about the Pistons being in contact with the Kings about Dennis Schroeder, and I was like, I can't even like work because you can't trade him to the Pistons because of the new CBA rules. Yep. He'd have to get rerouted to another team, and then you could trade for him. Which, good luck trying to find someone to take his contract because he signed a pretty big deal. So when I saw that report, I was like, that kind of seems like baloney to me when I saw it. But I mean, I appreciate you coming on, man. And it's always been fun. I know we talked about trades. We talked about a lot of different players, which I think a lot of people will love the podcast when I do release it on the audio side. But I want to give you the floor to plug and promote where people can find your work on YouTube, Substack, you irritating Hornets fans on Twitter, just all that good stuff, man.
Appreciate you, man. Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Sean Halfcourt. That's where you're gonna find a lot of like my day-to-day, kind of conversation and analysis, any questions and stuff from press conferences. If you want any of the podcasts, you want to hear more of these controversial takes and hear me and my boy Troy just go through all things Pistons and NBA, you can go to youtube.com/FromHalfCourt where you'll find all of that content. And then you can also go to Substack From Half Court as well. We'll be posting even more content there. And Yeah, man. Appreciate you as always having me on. I'm really excited because in the calendar year 2026, I'm going to be moving to the Detroit area full time. So that's just going to mean a lot more room for me to just keep doing more content, and just means I'm only going to be pushing even further. So just be sure you're following along, because I'm going to be only going even harder beyond this year.
Yeah, maybe you can get JB to laugh more in press conferences. But I do have all of your social media links down in the description below. If people are watching live on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter, you can follow Sean on his YouTube channel from Half Court. I know you do Substacks when you do have the time to do that. If I did miss anything, I do apologize.
Oh
But
no, you're perfect.
we will probably see you guys later next week. Maybe we will tease a little podcast with you guys, with Sean and myself, and maybe some others next week. Be on the lookout for that. But hope you guys have a great rest of your weekend. And as always, go Pistons. Peace.